Hey everybody, my name is Angie.
Hello humanity, my name is Daniel.
And welcome to our very first episode of Terrormedia.
Roar, ladies and gents, roar.
So, today on the agenda is the kind of new release of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What a massacre of a film it was, indeed.
Yes, indeed. There was a lot of gore, a lot of people dying, like always.
They should have killed the directing team. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
So, let's go through initial thoughts of the movie, right? So, first things first, a call back to the original film, the 1974 film. As soon as we start the movie, the first scene we see is the original group of kids that were slaughtered, right?
Correct.
Which ties it into the OG movie, which is a direct sequel.
Correct. This is very true.
What else did you notice the beginning of the movie?
I thought the beginning of the movie was actually kind of boring. I'm sure a lot of people are going to agree with me out there, but I thought in specific that the beginning of the movie seemed to introduce a lot of unlikable characters, particularly with the girl whose name was, I believe, Lila?
No. So which sister? There are sisters in this film. So which sister?
Sister that was arguing. The sister that was with the guy. Well, no, that was Mel. No, that was Lila.
I think you're talking about Mel.
Mel, yeah.
Mel was the curly-haired sister.
Mel was curly-haired, crazy lady. Yeah, crazy. Politics,
Yeah.
crazy.
She was the older sister of the two. I'm going to piggyback off what you said. They did seem very unlikable at first. They seemed like very spoiled city kids, not really respectful of their environment they were entering. And they did kind of make these characters seem like a very annoying version of today's youth, kind of poking fun at the newer generation of young people. So
this is very true.
That's one thing that definitely stuck out to me first. Something I noticed is, right off the bat, they do kind of mention that Mel and Lila are sisters, right? But we don't really get a lot of that relationship, throughout the film, like besides the fact that they're sisters and that Lila is traveling with her. It's kind of like I didn't see the connect, I didn't see a sibling rivalry. I didn't see two caring sisters. There was just really nothing besides the end of the film that really made us feel that sisterly connection between the two. So
just to piggyback on that comment, I feel like the lack of development between Mel and Lila was actually indicative of how the story was written in general, because, man, let's just be honest, for you guys who have seen it out there, this movie was all over the place, from violent murders, which were, in the sphere of the film and what it's trying to, represent by being a horror film and a gore film, a gore fest. For all my Rhino fans out there in wrestling, gore. Sorry. It was just a mess, and I mean, quite literally a mess of a movie. And the relationship that was failed, developed. I'm sorry. What the hell am I trying to say? The relationship that failed at being developed between Mel and Lila really exemplifies how loosely written this story was into the canon. Mm-hmm. And, there was so many, as you said before, Angie, my lovely podcast host, as you said before, they took so many shots at today's youth as well. Mm-hmm. For a movie that was aimed at being a new generation style, mm-hmm. something that was created to be more open to today's cultural landscape that's 2022. They really did take a lot of shots at how the youth views not only death, but
old towns,
yes,
old-timey towns.
Old-time towns that was really also exemplified in the dance party murder at the end of the movie, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Another thing to point out, which I think is a big elephant in the room for this movie, I don't know if this was the intention, but the political division was like very apparent in this movie.
Personally, I feel like Texas Chainsaw, Leatherface himself, is definitely a Republican. Just saying.
Definitely. But it was, you know, we don't really see a lot of those conversations happening in a horror film unless it is to make a parody of it. So I wonder if that was the intention.
I feel like it may have been an intention, but I think the bigger story that came out of this, while using political undertones, was to show the division between the prior film, like the prior audience that came with the film, that came out in, I believe, the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, to what we have today in the mid-20s, which is kind of crazy to think, because now I feel like I'm saying the 1920s, you know, but now we're actually in the 2020s. So, man, for all of you who are listening to this in 2023 or 2024, how's it going, man? We are currently struggling. 2022, help, please. Sorry, carry on. Anyway, I got distracted, but please help. I definitely think they took a lot of shots in a political sense. That's very different. It kind of connects to what they did in Chucky.
A little bit, yeah, with the whole the inclusion of the LGBTQ, you know,
right.
With Jake being gay and him, you know, struggling to not really come to terms with what he knows, but like other people poking fun at him and him staying quiet to himself about it.
Should have said spoiler warning. My bad, ladies and gents.
Well, at this point, people, it's been out for 4 months.
You
should have watched
right?
it. You should have watched it.
Go watch the fucking... can we curse?
You can
watch the fucking show. It's good.
Yeah.
Bucks.
Another thing, you know, just on the same topic of political stuff, is the Confederate flag. Oh my God. It was like...
Sweet home Alabama.
Christ. I saw that, I was like, I'll take that. Like, obviously, majority of Americans, people, sometimes I see that Confederate flag and they're like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Hey, howdy, hey, neighbors. You love to see it.
No, so yeah, that was definitely... a lot of triggering topics in this film, and one of them being definitely school shootings. Oh
yes, we cannot forget the importance that was put on Lila, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Lila, who, for those of you who... Now, I'm just going to go out here and say it. We're reviewing the movie. If you've made it this far and you're still listening, this is a spoiler-filled review.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do not have any intentions of watching this film, that's okay. Thank you for listening to us. We are going to do as best as we can to explain it. But if you want to watch the film yourself, go ahead and watch it, and then, come back and drop wherever you want to, look up for us on Instagram or on Facebook. Don't look for us on YouTube. I'm just kidding. You can look for us wherever you want. Anyway, the bigger topic here is, as Angie mentioned before, the topic of school shootings and how that affects the big arc of the movie itself. It's something that takes shape towards the end of it, where Lila has to come to terms and actually use a weapon to seemingly defeat Leatherface, but it was all for show, as it doesn't work for her. So do we, in that sense? So with that just came to my mind now. Do we even get a payoff then? Because Lila goes to save Mel while using a gun, but Mel still gets her shit rocked at the end.
Well, the thing is like with the ending, it was definitely he was challenging her. He does not like to be, challenged, and they both brought him a fight, together, and he was essentially daring her to come back. He did it kind of with other survivors in the past. Well, technically there were no survivors. This is a direct sequel to the first one. The only survivor was Sally, I believe her name was.
Right, yeah.
And he killed her. But, he's aware of what happened. And he did it to spite Lila,
Right.
So, that was just them blatantly saying, yeah, we're doing a sequel, and this is going to be our star, and this is going to be the reason why. So we know the plot of the next film. How they execute that, we don't know. What I did like about the final scene, though, was the kind of like the callback to part one. The way he was swinging the chainsaw around was very reminiscent of how he swung it around in the 74 film. So I like that.
Right, yeah, he definitely had like a Seth Rollins-esque swing to this chainsaw, which, as you said, is a very big callback to the original movie, and it definitely leaves the door open for a future project, hopefully done with better writing.
Oh, yeah.
Netflix, that is directed directly at you.
Yeah.
Understand? Good. All right? Good. Thank you. But yeah. Sorry.
So now let's shift our thoughts to what we did like about the movie. So I'll go first. I really liked Lila coming to terms with her fear. You know, she was afraid of guns after her trauma, which is understandable. But she understood that she had to save her sister's life and her own because no one else was going to do it. So her coming into her own and fighting for her life and for her sister, I really liked that scene. And that was really the only scene for me that made me feel that sister connection between the two.
Right. Yeah, that scene was definitely kind of tearing at your heartstrings. And if you have a heart, I know some of us in this world don't. Especially if we live in New York. No shade, but you know, we're a different breed. Anyway, yeah, that scene was definitely well written. And it's probably the only scene in the movie, at least in my opinion, that evokes an actual response from the audience in a emotional sense. You know, it makes you, or at least it made me, when I saw it, think to myself, like, wow, she really overcame her fear of a school shooting. And I mean, physically being on the floor playing dead or you know, trying to be as still as she could, actually made me think, like, wow, you know, there's a lot of people in this world who actually go through that and unfortunately struggle with being a victim of a school shooting. So I definitely agree with you on that and how it's important. It's how it's one of the best scenes of the movie. My favorite scene in the movie is a little more dark. I particularly loved the murder party bus.
Oh, yeah.
For any of you out there who play Trivia Murder Party, very, very good. It reminded me of that. But anyway, I get distracted a lot. I'm sorry. Not really, but it's okay. I thought that scene really, really drove home how stupid we are as people in 2020, especially the younger generation. No offense if you're like under 18. First of all, if you're under 18 watching this movie, Godspeed. You're a troop. I appreciate it. Actually, again,
I mean,
you shouldn't be watching it really because it's pretty fucked up. But
technically, it's rated R, right?
Yeah.
So it's 17 and up. So
17 and up. Wow.
Yeah, that's rated R. It's to be 17 or older. So
go watch this movie if you're 14. Be a rebel.
Go traumatize yourself real quick.
Go traumatize yourselves from a chainsaw. I mean, it happened to me too.
I mean, a lot of us have been watching horror films since we were young. That's why we're here, or more specifically, I'm here, talking about this horror film.
Right.
So
yeah, you're definitely the more horror character of the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fine. My thing is more Star Wars and like Funko Pops. For anybody who watches listens to us, you know?
You're the film guy, you know, and that's why I wanted to do this with you, because you're the film guy and you know how to break down these films and you help me kind of understand them better and we can have discussions about them. So that's why we make the perfect pair for these type of films.
We do make the perfect pair in many things in life. Many, many things. She is also in reference to a nice little other tidbit that you didn't add in there, but I will add in here right now. I'm also a photographer if you want to go ahead and spend 15% or, oh, fuck, I messed it up. Wow. It's all right. We'll try it in episode 2.
Your own shtick.
It's all good. We'll try it in the next episode. Don't worry about it. We'll put a plug for it at the end.
Which, shameless plug again, next episode will be on Sandra Oh's new film, Uma, you know, with director Sam Raimi. So that'll be fun.
I'm going to edit an actual like audio bite from there in so I don't hear my awful voice. Sorry. Hello. Thank you for listening. But yeah, going back to the murder party bus, that scene particularly stood out to me because when Leatherface, Mr. Rung, comes into the bus, there is a very, very, very unfortunately relatable character who stands in front of him and says, "Go ahead, bro. I got you on video. You'll get canceled," or something to that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets his shit ripped. And I mean ripped. And that made me so happy. Yeah. Because there's just so much lack of common sense. Mm-hmm. But in a beautiful way. Mm-hmm. You know, we've fallen so far as a country. Jesus, help us all. This movie exemplifies the fall of grace and how social media has played a big part of that. Oh, yeah. Especially in horror movies. I mean, for those of you who have seen Scream, the most recent Scream, or not too long ago there was a movie called Unfriended. A lot of these movies now are, yeah.
I mean, that was a while ago already.
That was a while,
crazy
yeah.
to think, but it was a while ago now.
I've dated myself. That was like, what, 5 years ago? 6 years ago?
So I believe, just a quick off-topic, Dark Web, was Dark Web or Deep Web? One of the two. It was Unfriended. I'm sorry.
Unfriended, I was about to say. Like,
Unfriended, the first one came out in about 2017.
Right.
And then Unfriended Dark Web, that's what I was thinking of.
That's what you're thinking of, okay.
That one came out maybe 2019, early 2020, maybe? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that those movies play into this whole, you know, social media narrative where, you know, the culture is related to that. So that, you know, before I tangent, that's definitely my favorite part of the movie. Mm-hmm. And that's for why. And plus, I like seeing super people get roughed up. So,
well, speaking of Scream as well, we're going to talk about Scream too. We're going to talk about Scream since
hello, Sydney.
The digital release of the film just came out about 3 days ago.
Nice. At time of recording.
At the time of recording, yes. So we'll be talking about Scream because I will be purchasing it. I saw it in theaters, but I'm going to rewatch it, go through it again, watch all the deleted scenes, and then we will be discussing that film as well.
I was also there when she saw it in theaters.
And since you said there was a lack of something, speaking of lack, there was a big lack of diversity in this film, you know.
Everybody was white.
Yeah.
Which is not a problem in most situations, but in this movie particularly, they put a big finger at it. Yeah, yeah. But I'll let you explain.
And this, I guess they were buying into the trope, maybe, or the stereotype of a horror film, which is the black characters seem to bite the dust first. So we had the boyfriend. I can't remember his name right now. I'll probably remember it later on, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. One of the main four that came into the town, he was killed, you know, right off the bat. And then later on, the banker, the bank teller, she was also killed. And those were the only two black people in this entire film. So,
which is kind of crazy to add because the original black male character was introduced in the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. Even went through a social stereotype as to when the cops pulled him over. And he died first, rather as the banker, actually, who had less screen time, who was less important, survived longer. So that's something that from a filmmaker's perspective, you know, raises my attention and says, well, who was really the more important character? The black male's character, I don't remember his name.
His name is Dante.
Dante. Okay, so Dante was, you know, he was experiencing a form of racism when he approached into the town. You know, they profiled him. There was a Confederate flag. He felt uncomfortable. And obviously anybody in that situation would feel uncomfortable for obvious reasons. Not only just black, but, you know, anybody who, you know, looks at that flag and sees it as a form of oppression, you know, they're going to feel uncomfortable with it. So Dante's character was kind of rightfully an aggressor when they walked into the house.
Yeah, because she first of all, you know, she did say, she's like, oh, you know, that was my grandfather's and whatever. But then the word she proceeded to call him was like, ma'am.
We cannot Actually, I mean, we're not getting paid for this, but we're not people of color. Well, technically we are.
We're people of color, but we're people of so just some background information real quick on us. We're Hispanic. I am Puerto Rican and Dominican.
I'm just Puerto Rican.
He's Puerto Rican.
Because I'm cool.
But we are of lighter skin complexion. So we are considered white Hispanics, but still people of color to an extent.
I can pass as a James if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So why don't we move on to the next topic, which be some questions / plot holes that we had.
For sure.
So one of them that I remember I had was Dante's fiance. You know, we barely heard her name. I had to Google her name because I couldn't seem to remember what her name was. I thought she was nameless. I thought that her role was going to be simply Dante's fiance.
Which, if you watch the movie with subtitles on Netflix, that is how she was referred to.
Yeah.
She is referred to as Dante's fiance. Not an actual name, just Dante's fiance.
Yeah, and I Googled it right now. Her name is Ruth.
Hello, Ruth.
There was a serious, issue with that. So when Ruth, got into the crash, again, if you haven't seen the movie and you're worried about spoilers, you shouldn't be here. But, she gets into a crash with the officers after an attack by Leatherface. And he didn't seem too concerned. He seemed more concerned with trying to prove that the property belonged to them than going to check on his fiance, which was, weird. That's really strange. Again, I don't really think relationships were a big priority in this film. And I get it. It's a slasher film, right? It's all about the blood and the guts and the way the kills happen, That's what people watch them for. But at the end of the day, you did make it seem in the end that it was about relationships. And even with Sally, right? Sally's whole motivation is that she saw all her friends get butchered. So it's strange that he didn't really give a shit that his fiance was missing at all.
Yeah, it was definitely strange. There was a lack of empathy shown towards, Ruth, or showed between Ruth and Dante. And just really quick on Sally, for reference, if you haven't seen the movie, think of Sally as a really old version of Jessie from Toy Story. A really, really old. Or Jessie meets Sandy Cheeks, but put her in a horror film. That's essentially Sally in this movie. There's a great scene where she gets her insides carved up, and she still survives for another 15 minutes or so. She can pick up a gun. Mind you, this lady is 70 years old.
Yeah.
If she gets chainsawed to the gut, she still has enough power to talk and shoot a shotgun. GG, Sally. GG. But yeah, no, definitely the relationship between Ruth and Dante was definitely not explained at all, and was definitely a big plot hole for not only, for you, Angie, but for me as well. Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
So were there any questions or plot holes that you had, for the film?
Well, in terms of plot holes, I would say that there was a character named Richter, who was the person who confronted the original four when they came into the town. And we don't really know his involvement. We don't really know why he felt inclined to get involved in the first place or what his backstory was. We just saw him as a person who was working in the garage, who happened to own a truck that blew a lot of emissions, and was a very aggressive character until he was shown to not be a bad character when he tried to help and stop the killings of the Leatherface monster, only for him to get his shit pushed in. So why did we introduce Richter? And can we have a spin-off, please? Because I feel like Richter and a Hulk Hogan theme, that would be great. I am a real man. Confederate flag too.
No, absolutely not. I think Richter was a nosy character. I think he was really nosy. I don't understand why he was so upset. Maybe he was a neighborhood boy or whatever, but he was getting way too involved for a property that wasn't even his.
Yeah.
He was I want to see the, what was he asking for?
He wanted to see the deed.
The deed. Yeah, he wants to see. I want to see that you have the deed. You're not the owner of this property. Why do you want to see the deed? Like, that is none of your business, and you said you didn't care as long as you got paid. So, this guy, he was another one of those characters they introduced that was really annoying,
Clearly Richter wanted to get richer and get paid, but he couldn't. Maybe that's why he was mad. Although I feel like Richter was probably a family member,
But we would
never know. So
yeah.
It could be something where they do a prequel or even a sequel, but it doesn't make sense to do a sequel with him because he got his shit stepped on.
He barely had 15 minutes of screen time. So
yeah, this is true.
Yeah. And he seemed pretty offended when he had to take down the Confederate flag, so I don't think many people are going to want to see him in a spinoff anyway.
Right. I definitely agree with that point.
Yeah.
So I just want to go ahead, Angie, and go ahead and ask you a question now.
Alrighty.
And that is on a scale of 1 to 10, while we wrap up our very first episode of Terrormedia here. Thank you, everybody, for listening so far. We do appreciate your help. Any comments you can leave us wherever this gets posted would definitely be a big help for us as well. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Angie, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this train wreck of a movie?
I would give this movie like a 6.5 out of 10. It was not the worst horror film we've ever seen. Trust me, we've seen the worst horror film.
The Midnight Man. Don't do it to yourself.
We should do a review on that movie so we can talk about how fucking bad it is.
Oh my god!
But it's not a Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not a bad movie. I'll give you some of the points, some of the things I liked about it. The SFX, the special effects, they were amazing. So gory, so good. I think they were done really well. It's always something that I'm always very impressed by when I see horror films is how realistic the prosthetics look, Right. I like that. I love the environment. The environment felt really Texan. It felt authentic, and it could have been that it was shot on set, like on site. But if it was, all done in a studio, then, kudos, because I liked the way it looked. And if this was filmed during a pandemic time, I think the cast was pretty small, so it was pretty COVID friendly. I like seeing Sally again. That's something they never really touched on after the first one, is they never really mentioned Sally again. They just kind of kept bringing in more and more victims, and people kept dying, and we never really knew what happened to Sally. So it was nice to see that OG character after all these years, despite her ending.
R.I.P. to Texas Sally.
We'll never see her again, sadly. This is not going to be like Halloween where we get 3 films of Laurie again. But, it was nice to see her.
Halloween, take points. Kill Laurie, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we can discuss that at a different time.
Halloween episode coming soon.
And I like Lila's development. I know we didn't get to see much of her on the screen. We saw mostly Mel and Leatherface, but when we did get to see Lila, and when she did kind of do what she had to do and become who she had to become to make sure that her and her sister would be safe, I really liked that. So those are my points of the film that I liked, and that's why I gave it the rating that I gave it. Now, how about you?
Very good points.
Out of 10, what would you give the film?
0. I'm just kidding. I would give the movie, we had notes here where I wrote down a predetermined score of 7.5. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go ahead and knock that down to a solid 7. Because as you said, the special effects were incredible. And the story was very easy to follow. As somebody who is just getting into watching more horror films because of my lovely co-podcast host here, it was something that I had been able to pick up and say, okay, he's in this area, these people came, he's killed them. So it was simple in that sense. It was very new audience friendly, despite the political undertones. The reason I give it a 7 and not a 7.5 or an 8 or a 9 is because the movie was so predictable.
Oh, yeah.
Every scene, every turn, every character who died, every character who came on screen, you could almost predict, especially from a filmmaker's perspective. I saw a lot of these characters and said, yeah, he's going to die in 5 minutes. Or, yeah, they'll survive to the end of the movie. So that is something that we can really break down on a longer episode where we have, a couple characters to compare and contrast, or where we have, one character who is alive for X amount of movies, and then a character like Dante who is alive for less than. Yes. I understand. Oh, shit.
Oh, no. What have you done?
I paused it. So I am sorry to those who listen. I clicked the wrong button and I fucked it up.
Yeah.
So we're adding this on at the end. This is like a special bonus clip for those of you who stuck along.
You better apologize.
Listen to me. Here, quick, come on. I want you to listen to me.
No. Oh, God.
Listen, CM Punk, greatest wrestler of all time. Who else thinks it? Yes? Anybody? No? MJF? Kaka? John Cena?
Don't indulge him. Don't indulge him in this behavior and this obsession with CM Punk. Obsession. Might
I remind you, you have my CM Punk shirt.
I wore that out of pure... Listen, I wore that because I know you wore it a lot, and I wanted it. But I did not want it because I'm a fan of his.
You're a fan.
I don't dislike him, but I don't like him either.
You're a fan.
I'm not a fan.
If
I was a fan, I would have tons of merch, okay?
You have my shirt, and that shirt to me means tons. So you have tons of merch.
Oh, yes, of course.
Don't be jelly.
Do you know who I am a fan of?
CM Punk.
Becky Lynch, but we'll get into that later. You were saying...
I was saying CM Punk. I was saying, actually, that I give the movie a 7 out of 10. And on a slasher scale, I give it a 9. Because violence, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Quick answer. On a slasher scale, what would you give it?
Slasher scale, I'd give it about the same, about 8, 9. It was really gory. The kills were... fun. I mean, they're gonna run out of ideas eventually on how to kill people, because there have been horror films and there've been slasher films for so many years, But for what it was really gory. So yeah, on a slasher scale, a 9.
A 9 it is, ladies and gents. There you have it.
And this concludes our first episode of... What is the name of our... Oh, Terrormedia.
Terrormedia.
There we are.
Fucking carrot. We only worked on this concept for like 2 months.
Oh, well, things happen. Listen, people are busy. My mind is in a fog 90% of the time.
Thank you, Lehman College.
Thank you.
Thank you for forcing us to go back in person, even though we could have stayed online. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, CUNY, if that's the case.
CUNY, a.k.a. cunt.
Yes.
Probably going to have to bleep that one. Should make a CUNY anonymous, like Alcoholics Anonymous. Call it CA.
Thank you for tuning in into our first episode of Terrormedia. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you tune back in, and hopefully you'll leave some comments, some thoughts, and if you agree or disagree with us,
go fuck yourself if you disagree. I'm just kidding.
And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
We will see you very soon. Thank you all. Have a great night.